Welcome back at the stage of the World Conservation Forum. My name is Mickey. I will be as a host for today, and it is my great pleasure to announce our next presenter, the 22nd Director of the United States Fish and Wildlife Services, Ms. Aurelia Skipwith, and she will enrich our knowledge about the sustainable conservation in the new digital age. Stay with us. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aurelia Skipwith Giacometto. Some of you may know me as Aurelia Skipwith, but just last week I got married to a guy that I've been dating for over 11 years. And I had the fortunate opportunity to tell his mother that I was proud to finally make him an honest man. So I am delighted to be here today for this wonderful event. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Attaché Kochi Bella, Ambassador Dr. Sabo, Deputy Prime Minister Shamajan, and Government Commissioner Zoltan Kovac for having me here. As mentioned, I was the 22nd Director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I understand conservation and the importance of hunting and fishing. I am reminded of it daily from my family of ranchers in Montana and South Dakota and family of farmers in Mississippi. Some call hunting and fishing a way of life. I call it living. I applaud this 50th celebration of the 1971 World Expo, which presented the relationship between people and nature. The theme of One with Nature, it's a triumph of management, of conservation, of hunting, and educating our next generation. And when I say we, I'm talking about the collective we. I'm talking about the person that you go hunting with. I'm talking about the neighbor that is sitting next to you. I'm talking about your parents. There's a neighbor sitting next to you. And I'm talking about your children. Now, more than ever, we face challenges of an unprecedented level, and they are going to require collaboration, cooperation, and trust. And that's going to happen on an international, federal, state, local, tribe, and organizations to come together. And it's coming together with venues like this. It's also going to require us to fight for what is right. And I can tell you one of the reasons why I was confirmed by the U.S. Senate as the director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is because I believe in fighting. I believe that the success of wildlife management in the United States, it's not based solely on regulations that are swayed by political beliefs, but it's from a concerted model that was established by the people. And in the US, we support the North American Wildlife Conservation Model. And it has 7 principles, but I really want to highlight 2 of those principles. The first one, that fish and wildlife belong to all Americans. And second, that fish and wildlife populations need to be sustained for future generations to enjoy. I love talking about how great the American tradition of hunting and fishing is inextricably linked to our freedom, because sometimes we forget about it and our next generations need to be taught it. And I'm proud to be here and experience the greatest of Hungary's love of nature, of hunting, of conservation, and working all over the globe to make this a reality. And that is what brings us here today. Growing up, I spent a lot of time in southern United States. That's where my grandfather and my family were in the great state of Mississippi. And my grandfather taught me a saying. He said that if you don't grow it, catch it, or kill it, then you didn't eat it. And so with that in mind, that is what drives my decisions in my education. And so I understand your history here, and I marvel at how Hungary has united and galvanized at a country level and inviting other countries to participate in conservation and hunting. This is in my blood, and my grandpa would be very proud. Every day when I was director of the service, I would think about my grandpa and what he would say as I worked to open up more federal lands for hunting and fishing, and more opportunities for that to happen, and did just that. And under my watch, we opened more than 4 million acres for people to enjoy. One conservation success that I want to touch on are fish hatcheries. Internationally, fish hatcheries are a sustainable way to keep our wild populations alive and healthy, as well as supplement them. We do it because it benefits the ecosystems, it helps the recreation sport fishing industry, and it's sustenance for people. Most people don't think about sports women and men helping the economy. But it's either if you're out eating your harvest or you're out there on recreational activities, participating with your friends, what you are doing outdoors is a big boon to the economy, and it supports conservation. It generates billions of dollars in taxes and business income for local economies and communities and families around the world. And on the flip side of that, these communities know that if they do not maintain healthy ecosystems for conservation, this will all end. In the United States in 2020, we had over 59 million visitors to the Fish and Wildlife Service lands. That is the largest in our history. And their spending generated over $3 billion in sales and impact to local communities, and it supported over 41,000 jobs. That's pretty big, and that's just on a national level. Think about the impact that it has on an international level. So for conservation to be sustainable, it must pay for itself one way or another. And that is why I'm here today to talk about the sustainability of conservation. Before I became director, I had just launched a company, and it was based on tracking and tracing of products on a blockchain. It was also about providing custom clearances and supply chain financing. We are now focused on the medical value chain, and yes, that's the name of the company, medical value chain. And in a country where we are deployed, we make sure that there are no counterfeit drugs that are sold. I am motivated about using that new digital technologies, such as cryptocurrencies, digital dollars, non-fungible tokens, decentralized financing products, and applying it to conservation. And all of this that's going on with blockchain, I'm telling you, it is rocking this world and is scaring the hell out of the old world. And all of this runs on blockchain. So for those in the crowd, raise your hand if you know about TOTOABA. Okay, this is an opportunity. I love it. TOTOABA is one of the most endangered fish in the world. It's due to the illegal harvesting caused by the huge demand of its swim bladder. One company has stood up in the fight by farming this fish. It's using genetic markers and QR codes to distinguish the wild from the aquaculture grown. And they've been doing this for over 20 years. TOTOABA is endemic to the Bay of California in Mexico. And not only is this company selling this fish within Mexico, but annually it releases over 40,000 fish in the wild to supplement the wild population. Annually in the US, we produce millions upon millions of aquaculture-grown fish. And we do that because we're supplementing the wild populations because we want them to stay healthy. But then we're also doing it to mitigate projects, such as construction projects or other development projects. And we know that these wildlife population and genetics for those populations have been saved by this technique. But for TOTOABA, in this one specific place, and this one specific company, people within other country governments have said no. As mentioned, I'm a biologist and I'm also a lawyer. And I base my decisions on sound science, the rule of law, and common sense. So we're dealing with here, it's a science problem. It's not a legal problem. And common sense and blockchain can solve the problem. Blockchain can solve the problem because this is a trust issue, and blockchain can provide transparency to the system. This company has done two things. First, it created a sustainable solution for the almost extinct TOTOABA. And second, it solved the economics of compensating the company for producing and finding a legal way to sell this highly desirable fish. Blockchain puts the power with the people. And you can use the blockchain from farm all the way to table so that you know each TOTOABA and its swim bladder is exactly where it's supposed to be. That is sustainable conservation for healthy TOTOABA populations for generations to come. And this same process can be tailored for other species, especially endangered and threatened species in international trade. The United States has set aside hundreds of millions of acres for conservation, such as protecting wetlands for ducks. And they've been doing that through the US Federal Duck Stamp Program. Since it was established in 1932, hunters and collectors' purchases of these stamps have made conservation possible for fish and wildlife that's hunted, as well as non-hunted species, because those species and plants share those landscapes. These are valuable lands that are conserved in perpetuity. That means for our future generations. That is why I believe that crypto can be a major force in conservation. If an international organization such as Ducks Unlimited or Safari Club International were to set up a token on a DAO. What is DAO? DAO stands for a decentralized autonomous organization. And that's where decisions are made from the bottom up. And it's governed by a community that has a specific set of rules that are enforced on a blockchain. This arrangement gives decision-making authority to the members and not to a single person or to a single entity. And it eliminates the human error or the manipulation that happens with the funds. You're making sure that that money and that funding goes towards conservation. When an organization establishes a DAO, a very large amount of these tokens are produced. Those tokens are then sold to people. Those members get two things. One, they now have a share in that DAO. And second, they have a voting right. And now the organization can raise funds for projects. And those owners of the tokens can select and direct where that funding can go. So value is created for all stakeholders, especially for conservation. I want to talk about a thing really quickly that really, really bothers me. I was in the Department of the Interior for almost 4 years, and I would see constant lawsuits that were filed. And these lawsuits were filed on almost every major decision that was made, and they were filed by these environmental organizations. These lawsuits did nothing but waste taxpayer dollars, make law firms rich, and fund the staff of these extremist organizations. So what could they do? File more lawsuits and raise more money. When an endangered or threatened species that's listed under the Endangered Species Act is delisted and is recovered, there should be a celebration, not another lawsuit. And that is why when they talk about wildlife, they're doing nothing to help those groups that they purport to care about. So we need to speak out on those issues and against those groups, like the Center for Biological Diversity. They do nothing but milk the system. And it's these opportunities that we need to work together and talk about other ways for sustainable conservation. And so rest assured, I will always continue to fight for what is right. The last innovation that I want to talk about in this digital age is DeFi. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. It is another blockchain-based technology. It's a form of finance that doesn't rely on a central intermediary. So you're not working with a bank, you're not working with an exchange, and you're not working with brokerage in order to get that traditional type of financing. Instead, you're using smart contracts on blockchain. What in the world does that mean? Well, let's talk about how it can be used for conservation banks. So you have land conservation and mitigation banks, right? And so they have become one of the largest tools when it comes to offsetting impacts to lands due to development or construction or other types of projects. Hundreds of millions of dollars are made in the process of conserving and land through these land banks. And so I believe that DeFinance can be extended to people all over the world who care about conservation, people like us. And that is one reason why we're all here, because of conservation. So DeFi brings a way about the democratization to finance. It eliminates the bureaucratic top-down process that you have, and it allows free markets which provide true service to the citizens. You have investors, for example. A small investor can put in, let's say, $50 into an entire pool, a pool that provides services to those that then borrow the money. This pool can lend millions of dollars, or it can lend tens of dollars based for conservation efforts. It is the market that determines the investment, the risk, and the reward. And it allows all citizens to participate. Either citizens can look at this as a way to lend because you're looking for a financial return, or because you want to lend because of the conservation impact, or you have an opportunity to do both. all transactions are efficient, and the other thing is it provides transparency. These are all new tools that we have in our toolbox. Our future depends on us using digital innovation, and it has brought more tools to us. In the United States, Theodore Roosevelt almost single-handedly launched the conservation movement in the US. He understood that conserving our natural heritage was inextricably linked to our American democracy. And so that is why he saw protection of our lands and restoration of our lands for the benefit of all Americans as his greatest conservation legacy. And he knew that hunters and anglers were key to making that happen. And I know in this new digital age that is upon us, and in this new generation of conservationists and stewards of land and wildlife, that we have to use these tools to our advantage and using them on an international scale. Hunters and anglers are our greatest conservationists and our most dedicated advocates for wildlife conservation. These recreational activities, they create jobs, and they provide positive economic benefits for local communities. Blockchain technologies, cryptocurrencies, non-fungible tokens, DeFi products, they're changing the world right now as we speak. And we can use those to change conservation movement for the good of all. We truly have a way for sustainable conservation. And as I like to say with everything, let's get her done. Thank you.